Hi everyone, this is Lin Bouthillier from linbouthillier.com. I'm a certified trauma recovery coach and I'd love to welcome you to another episode of my ongoing series entitled Monogamous at 13. This is my ongoing long-term trauma story told from two perspectives. One as the trauma experiencer and trauma survivor, and then the other perspective is as a mental health professional who is a person who specializes in trauma. All certified trauma recovery coaches are mental health professionals who are specialists in trauma. And so from time to time, I really love to make a video that helps people to understand certain concepts related to trauma, to help them to have a clearer understanding of what may have happened to them. And I love to do this with always the undercurrent. It's always present, the undercurrent of we must understand that it was not our fault and we could not control what happened to us, and that we do have an amazing capacity to heal and recover from our trauma. So with those just really simple understandings, it opens up massive opportunities for us to be able to get back into our life the way we want to live our life. And the school that I was certified through explains it as we want our client and ourselves to be able to live the life we love to live. That is just sums it up perfectly. And once again, I'm having a little bit of difficulty because my when I record my videos on Zoom, as I've done for well over a year, I can pause my video recording, and with this format that I'm using, I can't pause when my dogs bark, and they have this innate knowledge of when I need them to be quiet, and one of them is just utterly defiant. She knows that I need quiet, she's gonna bark. And she's been this way for going on 13 years. So I adore both of them. That's little Hazel over there making some noise from time to time. And the only thing I can do is ask my viewers is when we get to parts where she's barking, you might want to do yourself a favor and just fast forward through it when you're watching or listening to the video. So I appreciate that very much. Just one small technical thing. One of my things became unplugged and I have to plug it in. Be right back. Just as I hit play, my power supply fell right off the table. So, all right. So today's topic, as always, anything that anytime we're discussing trauma, we need to understand that we could become triggered. And the best way to prevent and handle triggers is to have a grounding tool in our hand or close by. And I'll show you what I have. It's one of my little holy stones from Lake Erie. And it's one of my favorite ways to ground myself is with a natural stone item. And as many of you know, many of my viewers and subscribers already know, Lynn has a thing for stones with holes in them because they're just amazing. They're fantastic. And for those of you who are into mathematical knowledge, anytime we have a flat item that has, or roughly flat item that has a hole all the way through it, it now automatically has become a one-sided object. And I have always thought that's just mind-bendingly cool. All right, so today's topic is I'd like to speak a little bit about, and this has been my beginning of the year focus for 2025. I will say that. Some of you have probably noticed already that I have been speaking a lot about people who have no conscience, because a massive amount of the trauma that's within human beings has come from the fact that they are in relationship to or with, or in somehow or some way affected by a person in their life or in their world, in their community, in their government, who has no conscience. And I've made several videos about what that means when a person has no conscience, and I've spoken numerous times about how we can tell when a person either has rudimentary conscience, meaning it's barely there, it's barely discernible, or it can be active a little bit sometimes. And the difference between that and when we can see that there's a person who NFGs at all times, they just do not care. They can't consider anything that they do wrong because there's no such thing to them as right and wrong. And they do understand that in our communities, in our world, there's a certain amount of play acting that they must be able to do in order to be either flying under the radar, going undetected, or if they want to be seen as a person who fits in and doesn't raise any red flags, so to speak. They just really, really want to fly under the radar. An example of this would be, let's say, for instance, a third grade child, and they've heard since the very beginning of a school, attending either public or private school, but they've heard the rules. They've seen what all of the children around them are expected to do and what they are expected to do. And they learn how to speak the language of remorse without feeling remorse. An example of that would be, when a teacher says something like, I want to know who just did that while my back was turned, and nobody's going to lunch and recess until I get an answer from all of you about what just happened. Somebody needs to come forward and say what happened. They're able to process that and know that if one person in the classroom did something and it's holding, 28 other students up from what they want to get to, that a kid with a conscience would stand up and, or just walk up to the desk and say to the teacher, you know what, I did it. I'm sorry, I apologize. And then deal with whatever consequences would be happening. Most likely it would be some form of, really minor punishment. But a kid who doesn't have a conscience has learned how to wiggle around in situations like that. And I'll give you an example that I heard numerous times from being in relationship with a person who has made it from childhood to adulthood, skating by while having very high antisocial traits, very high narcissistic traits, very, very high oppositional defiant traits. And there were certain things that were just required of children and adolescents. And I heard this story multiple times, and I'll share it with you because it'll sound very familiar to many of you, help you understand what it's like for a person to try to skate by when they don't have much of a conscience, they don't have much remorse, and they don't mind using other people to get their needs met so that they don't suffer any consequences, such as staying after school, a letter home to their parent, losing privileges in the classroom and on the playground, in school, detention or suspension, things like that. So I'll just give you this story really quick. This individual would understand that today the entire class, English class in 8th grade, was given an assignment to do a book report. And every kid by 8th grade, you are so used to doing book reports in most schools that it really doesn't faze you much anymore. You just know you have to either pick a book from your bookshelf at home or go to the library, go somewhere, get a book that's interesting and read the book. And it might have to be in a certain genre, a certain topic, whatever. But most kids understand, I have a little bit of reading to do, and then after that, I'm going to write a book report. And each different teacher at each different school would have a different format for the book report that would be already well known to their students, made known to them most likely at the beginning of the year. And so a kid who has high oppositional defiant traits A kid who doesn't really have much of a conscience, a kid who doesn't really have the ability to feel or express remorse, would immediately begin to figure out, how do I get around this? How do I make this happen so that I don't get in trouble and I satisfy that person's needs, but I don't have to do anything? I want to get by with doing the least I can get away with doing, because, and I can share this with you from firsthand knowledge of someone explaining to me when I kind of poked around and asked, can you share more with me about what did you feel in this process? What were your thoughts? What was going on inside of you? The answer was very matter of fact. It was just a shrug. It's like, I ain't doing that. Why should I have to do that? That's stupid. So you just find a way to make it happen that it appears that you did it when you didn't. And this way, two things that a person with high oppositional traits, high defiant traits, high um, antisocial traits, a person who doesn't mind lying or cheating or stealing or in some way breaking the norms of society. And in a school is a society unto itself, as we know, and the students would be very, very well aware, most of them, especially by 8th grade, would be very well aware of the expectations for conduct and for schoolwork. And so what this individual would do is find a book that has most of what's on the inside written on the back cover. And you know how there's the jacket in the book that tells a little bit about the author, and it tells a little bit about the story that's in it. Or if it's a nonfiction book, it would tell a little bit of the information that's inside of it, sort of an overview. And then what they would do is even go so far as to ask other people, did you read that book? What did you think of it? And then just kind of pay attention to what they're saying and work that into the book report. If the book report is required to be 300 to 500 words, a person who has these oppositional and defiant traits and antisocial traits and, you know, really, really deep dishonesty, they will do everything they can to not make it one word more than the minimum word requirement, because it's not just about not wanting to do what they're asked to do. It goes a little deeper than that. What I'm describing here is a person who absolutely gets a thrill out of getting one over on you. So if there's a requirement that it must be 300 to 500 words, no less than 300, no more than 500, that person is going to count words and make sure that it is exactly 300 or maybe 301, 302, but they are not going to give anything more than the absolute minimum requirement. And they can become really focused on that, because this is part of what they do in adulthood. This is the process of them learning in childhood and adolescence of how they're going to be as an adult, and how they're going to willfully, intentionally withhold what another person wants, needs, requires, asks for, requests. I mean, it just, all of it is based on, I want to withhold from you what you're asking of me, because I'm the more important person, and you will never, ever, ever get what you want from me. I will not give it to you. Unless, and this is a huge unless there's a massive payoff for me. And if the payoff for me includes control of you, then so much the better. But my first and always top priority is, I'm going to get one over on you. I'm going to be the smarter of the two of us, and you're going to get ripped off, and I'm going to be the person who rips you off. You're not going to be the person who rips me off for, in reference to a book report, for my television time, for my music time, for my hanging out with my friends and smoking and laughing and getting into weed and just sitting around shooting the shit, for better words, for lack of better expression. Okay, so what they want is idle time, and they want time with other people because, and again, this goes hand in hand with antisocial traits. They really, 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 really need attention. And it needs to be an actual specific type of attention. It can either be, I'm giving you attention because you've done something dreadful and I need you to sit down and listen. Or the, you are, you're wonderful. I want to be with you. I think you're delightful. You're the love of my life. You're the focus of my world kind of attention. Either one will do. But as long as they are controlling the situation, then thumbs up. Everything's great. So let's go back to the book report for just a moment. If a person with high antisocial traits is an 8th grader and they're responsible for turning in a book report, it's going to be the most lackluster, half-assed, barely put together book report. And I've seen this happen. I've witnessed it, where if the teacher calls a kid up to the desk, and there's not much privacy, the old expression, ain't no secrets on an 8-foot boat. When you're inside a classroom and it's quiet and a teacher calls a kid up to say, essentially, I can't believe you handed this in. A kid like that will argue. They're bold. They will argue with the teacher and say, come on, what? This is fine. I gave you a perfectly good book report. I read the book. Can't you tell? I read the book. I mean, look at it. Everything's there. Tells you what you want to know. And they might even begin to personally attack the teacher and say, what's the matter? This isn't good enough for you? And then they could play the sympathy card, which is, why are you picking on me? Don't you have something better to do? Look at all these kids in here. You should be teaching, right? Why are you just wasting time picking on me? They will say things that are that audacious. They will say things that are that out of control. And gaslighting. They absolutely don't mind gaslighting an adult, because another piece of the puzzle with them is that they don't see themselves as part of the student body. They do not see themselves as, we're a group of adolescents and we're all mostly 12 and 13-year-olds and we're in 8th grade. And then there are the people who are the school staff, who are adults who hold authority positions, and are teachers, principals, cafeteria staff, cleaning staff, support staff, resource room staff, all of these different things, assistant teachers, substitute teachers, all of these people that are the adults in this environment. The kid who has the antisocial traits sees them as part of the adult group. They are offended when people expect them to function within their role as a student, because they truly believe that that's beneath them. They think that they are part of the adult world. And the person that I knew for a very, very, very long time told me, in no uncertain terms, numerous times, when I was just a little kid, I wanted to be seen as an adult, and I wanted to be accepted as an adult, and I wanted to be, like carte blanche, allowed to do every single thing that adults are allowed to do. When I was in 4th grade, I thought that I had the right to have sex, smoke, drink, drive a vehicle, not go to school, and to just do what the adults do. And I thought it was grossly unfair that I was still being treated like a child and I had to do child things, including the worst of the worst, attend school. And even, well, even worse than that, attend school and follow the rules of a school system and do the actual school work for grades and have either your work approved of or disapproved of, to have your work pass or have your work be considered to have, a failing grade. And another thing that did come up was being told that I think it was either possibly fourth or fifth grade year, there was a conference with the parents, and they were told that their child was going to be required to attend summer school. And the reason that this kid was going to summer school is because their work throughout the year was inadequate. They did not do the homework assignments that they were required to do, or the quality of them was so lackadaisical and so poor that they could not get a passing grade for the work that they did. And at the end of the year, when the parent was called in for a conference, and they told the student, you're not passing this grade unless you go to summer school. These are your two options. You can repeat the grade next year, take the summer off and just repeat the grade next year, or you can go to summer school so that you don't have to repeat the grade. But summer school begins as soon as school lets out, and it goes through until the end of August. So you will only have about 2 weeks of the year of the summer where you aren't going to school. I believe that's pretty accurate to the way it was told to me. Might have been a little bit different time frame for that, but the point was it took the whole summer. And and I heard many times that was just awful. Everybody else was going to the beach and to amusement parks and on vacations, going camping and hanging out with their friends, going to summer recreation. And I couldn't do that because I was stuck in summer school. And I can remember so clearly that I was being told it was my teacher's fault. I did fine work all year long. It was my teacher's problem because she was a bitch. She was a bad person. And she just wanted to ruin my life. And so this gives me some really, really clear insight into when a person believes that they should have whatever they produce, whether they're at work or whether they're still a child, in the school system, whether they're in college, whether they're just doing something around the house with their family and their spouse. They have this really deeply rooted belief that whatever they decide is good enough for you to accept, you should fermer la bouche and accept it. That means you just close your mouth and accept it without question, then we'll all get along fine. Because they have this, again, we're going back to the beginning of this conversation, where at the outset, the most important thing to understand is this person with high antisocial traits, low conscience, low empathy, low remorse, extremely impaired or missing ability to feel or express remorse for what they do. And they have never developed an actual working sense of right and wrong. So to them, wrong means whatever doesn't work for me, and right means whatever I can get away with that does work for me. But it's not the same as for people who understand those concepts. It's just different. It is just completely and utterly a entirely foreign operating system than what most of us have on board inside of ourselves that we were born with, and that was nurtured and developed through our upbringing and through our education. And so this person that I'm speaking about had no really well-defined or developed ability to care what was expected of him or to produce what was expected of him. And there's words that are very similar. We have conscience and we have conscientious. What does conscientious mean? It means that we care while we're, well, let's just say, making a book report, okay? Creating a book report for a grade in 8th grade. When you see on a report card that this child is a conscientious worker, what does that mean? It means that they care what they are handing in. It means that they care that they follow the rules. It means that they care that they don't hand in plagiarized work. It means that you are doing the work to the best of your ability, and that you have the ability to care whether or not you're showing up as a student who values the materials, respects the teacher, respects the other student, follows the rules, cares about whether or not your work is of decent quality. And so, we could go on and on and on about the details of that. But now let's one more time go back to the book report. A kid who doesn't have care, a kid who doesn't have conscience, a kid who doesn't have the ability to see the teacher as in any way an authority, sees the school as a prison full of people who are not worthy of respect at all, and sees an assignment of a book report as an absolute disgusting imposition to be placed on them. How dare you expect me to do the same as all those other kids? I'm special. Sooner you figure that out, the sooner we're going to get along. I'm special. I should be exempt. Well, they're not exempt, and they know, especially after having a summer of summer school, the school is not joking. If you don't do the work, you're not going to pass. I know there's a few exceptions to that. I understand that, but on average, most of the time, school's going to say, you didn't do the work, and I'm holding you responsible for this, and these are your choices. You can repeat the grade or you can go to summer school. Well, with this, again, back to the book report, what the student essentially is trying to do is to create a facsimile of a book report that's close enough to fool the person who will be giving out the grade. The amount of care and attention and time that they put into fooling somebody and beating the system, it seems lost on them that it would have taken about the same amount of time and energy to just read the book and do the book report and hand it in, get a good grade. Then why is that so off-putting to them? Why is that such an abhorrent idea? Why is it so off the table for them? It's like, nope, that's not even an option. Don't even ask me to do that. Inside the message to themselves is, I have to cheat at this. I have to. Because otherwise I'll be just like everybody else, and I can't do that. I'm special. I am exempt. I'm better than them. I'm different than them. And I need everybody else to understand this. Why can't I get you to understand that I'm one of the few people who's been dropped on the planet who should never have to do anything, including tell the truth, including follow the rules, including do what is required of a person for part of their school curriculum. So they will find a way to cheat. And I remember being specifically asked, can you write the book report for me? Did you read the book? And my response was, yeah, I read the book. And they might even ask, did you already do your own book report? Yeah. Yeah, I did. Can I see it? Will you give it to me? Because if they can get their hands on someone else's work, they will sit in a study hall and copy it word for word. They'll copy it exactly as what they see and then hand yours back to you. Take theirs in and hand it in, later in the day or next period or whatever, whenever they get the opportunity to hand it in. And they do not care if the teacher's going to bring two kids in and say, which one of you wrote this and which one of you copied. They will throw you under the bus immediately if that happens. I did not have that experience, but I've seen it happen. I've seen a teacher saying to two kids, I want to talk to the two of you, your book reports match. They're, kids who have these really high antisocial traits, they're so wrapped up in their own world that they can't think that far out. They can't get out ahead of their skis and see that teachers have been doing this for eons and they know exactly what stuff kids attempt to pass over on them, and that they don't really have a whole lot of patience for that stuff, and it's not cute or entertaining. So when I was older and I was meeting the parents of this individual, the mother would talk at great length about how much difficulty she had with the teachers in the school who really wouldn't accept that she was an authority over them. So the mother of this student had very high antisocial traits as well, and would go to bat for her kid and say, the way I heard it, it was sad because she would swear at the teacher. She would degrade them, verbally degrade them, gaslight them. And I didn't know that language then, but I know it now. But that's exactly what was happening. How dare you accuse my kid of doing something wrong? And then have to knock them down, say, where'd you get your education? Or, you're just a teacher working in a 2-bit country town. What do you know about anything? You should probably do your work and be quiet. That sort of stuff. The conscienceless pushback of a parent of a kid with high antisocial traits. If that parent has the high antisocial traits, which is very, very likely, then, well, I shouldn't say very, very likely. That's not true. That's not true. And I regret saying that I need to rescind that. Because if a parent has a child who has high antisocial traits, there are millions of people who are really struggling with that, and the parents don't have that. That was inappropriate for me to say. In this case, both parents did, but the mother much more so. And she was kind of bragging to me that the school eventually learned not to push me around because I'm not going to let them speak about my kid the way that they would be speaking about my kid. And essentially, what the school was saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, I'll just get straight to the point. Your kid's a liar and a cheater. Your kid cheats at school, he cheats on his work, and he refuses to hand work in, and he doesn't respect the teacher, doesn't respect the school rules. And so, as I've said before, on our 8th grade class trip in the month of June 1977, when we got to Dearborn, Michigan for our class trip, because we were going to the Henry Ford Museum in the Dearborn Village, and we were going to be there for a total of 3 days. And when that happened, when we arrived there, the kid that I'm speaking about with the high antisocial traits and oppositional defiant traits and highly narcissistic traits, um, less than 5 minutes in the hotel room was already caught smoking, which we had to sign a piece of paper when we turned in our trip money that made it very, very clear what the rules were on this trip, and we had to make a signed pledge that we would not engage in any of these behaviors. I remember that very clearly, and it was like a sort of a conduct contract. Just make sure that we understood the rules, and this is what, if you do any of these things, this is what will happen. Well, the four guys in that room, immediately, as soon as they got into their hotel room, they lit up cigarettes in there, and one of the adults came into the room. They were busted, and that changed everything about the trip for them, the entire trip. They didn't get to be with the other kids. They didn't get to socialize with the other kids. They didn't get to have recreation time with the other kids. They had to eat together in a different area, and that's just what happened. And I heard for decades afterwards, and that didn't come up all the time. It's not something like people sit around just say, hey, remember, let's talk about the 8th grade trip. No, it's not like that. But references to it would come up for every once in a while. And it took me until I was in my 50s to understand this is a giant neon, flashing red sign that is showing me out of a couple hundred kids, there were a few that had a significant behavior problem, and it was present then, and it's not something that gets better or goes away in most cases. Well, what does this have to do with trauma? I'm taking the big, long, scenic route to come around to. What does this have to do with trauma? What it has to do with trauma is when we are in relationship with a person who cannot and will not respect the rights of others. They don't respect other people, and they don't respect the rights of other people. They don't respect your right to be living your life unlied to. Same as with the teacher. A book report that's a plagiarized book report, a book report that's been copied right off of somebody else's paper, a book report that has a bunch of nonsense words in it as filler just to be able to meet the requirement of the 300 minimum word count. All of these are little things that an antisocial trait person will really, really focus on. They just hyper focus on what's the minimum I can do to keep myself from facing punishment, but to still put one over on that teacher and the system, the school, the class, the other students, because they're a bunch of suckers. They're sitting around reading books like a bunch of idiots, and they're writing book reports like a bunch of idiots. But I'm so far above them. I'm way up here while they're doing their book reports. I'm sneaking into a bar with an underage ID, and I might be sucking face with the waitress behind the building and possibly smoking her up out there, or she's smoking me up. And when I'm leaving this place, I'm going to feel like a big man because, and this is later on in high school, but I'm 15 years old, but you have to be 18 to drink there, and I just beat the system. Or that server there could be somebody's girlfriend, fiance, or wife, and they're never going to know, most likely, what I did. And I'll know it for the rest of my life, but nobody else will know it. And I got something over on somebody. They love to have a secret. They absolutely love to have a secret. And it's just part of, if you have to have a quiver full of arrows so that you can always be ready for whatever comes up, a person of high antisocial traits considers to have secrets. Secrets are like quivers in their arrows in their quiver, because they want to be able to have something that you can just pull it out at a second's notice and have it ready to use to fire at somebody, to protect yourself, to keep yourself from ever having to face a consequence for something that somebody might have found out what you did. You got to have a way to distract. You have to have a way to hit them hard with a piece of information that will shut them up, embarrass them, humiliate them, or make them feel in some way defeated or powerless. So they absolutely do love to point out another person's powerlessness on a second's notice. And it might be so shocking to you when you experience this the first few times, because when they idealize you in a relationship, whether you met them in adolescence or in young adulthood, middle age, or in your seniorhood, they're going to idealize you when they first meet you so that they can gain your confidence, and that so that you will trust them and think that they are the greatest, most indispensable person ever. And then, as always, and some people believe this only happens with narcissistic abuse. Well, if you look at the traits of a person, the antisocial personality disorder traits, narcissism is one of the traits. So narcissistic personality disorder is a personality disorder that is diagnosable by a clinician. Antisocial personality disorder is a mental health disorder, a personality disorder that is diagnosable by a clinician. But with all of your personality disorders, officially labeled diagnosable personality disorders, many of them have the trait of narcissism in them. And so a lot of the traits are kind of cross-pollinated from disorder to disorder. And we don't hear it a whole lot in our society outside of mental health education circles. Just generalized in society. We don't hear a whole lot about the fact that personality disorders can be comorbid. What that means is a person could be actually having multiple different types of mental disorder going on at the same time. So we do, I think, tend to gravitate a little bit towards thinking, well, somebody has NPD, or they have ASPD, or they have ODD, oppositional defiant disorder, or they're, 18 years old, they have conduct disorder. And that's a disorder of childhood and adolescence. But we can be comorbid with mental health diagnoses, and that includes personality disorders. It's also very possible that a person might have two personality disorders, and on top of that, other, mental health disorders, like major depressive disorder or generalized anxiety disorder, panic disorder, things like that. They could have just any stack of any of them. But people with high antisocial traits, they could have just one, or they could have multiple comorbid mental health disorders. And that gets into some pretty complex stuff, but the most important thing that we need to understand is, and this is really, really oversimplification, but I mean this because I care about my viewers and it's super important for you to understand. There are a massive number of us in the world who think that there is something wrong with us, that we somehow developed some form of mental illness, or that, I'm depressed or I have anxiety, which may be true. But the root of it can actually be, the root cause could actually be that you've been severely traumatized, or traumatized enough over a long-term period, even low to moderate traumatization of being in a relationship with a person who has high antisocial traits or high narcissistic traits, high psychopathic or sociopathic traits. That is more than enough to make us have significant trauma inside of our body. And a lot of us are not putting the two together. Relationship trauma needs to be looked at, because if we've been bumping up against, this is just an expression that I use, bumping up against a person who has high antisocial traits, high psychopathic traits, high sociopathic traits, high narcissistic traits, high oppositional defiant traits, or high borderline traits even sometimes. They're taking their dirty arm, sticking it into the fishbowl of your life and swirling that water, then pulling it out, walking away, and leaving you stuck in that current. Leaving you to try to figure out, what just happened to me? What am I even coping with? What is at the root of this? What has happened? Why are my relationships falling apart? I mean, all of them. Why are my relationships going sour? Well, there is a common denominator, isn't there? There absolutely can be. And again, like I said at the beginning of this video, one of their favorite things is to have secrets and to have put one over on somebody. And usually that can look like character assassination, smear campaign, parental alienation, and all kinds of other things that are under the category of covert, stealth behaviors on their part that you won't know about, most likely, until the damage has been done, and the damage is significant, meaning you're losing relationships with people you care an awful lot about. And there was, I can't remember who it was. It was a man that I was listening to in recent months. And he said, so some of you will recognize this right away who it was, but they said that abuse doesn't come to us through the animal world. Oh, you know what? It was M. Scott Peck. It was the book People of the Lie. Yeah, M. Scott Peck, MD. Sadly, he's no longer extant in our world, but he wrote the Road Less Traveled, I believe, and People of the Lie, and there might have been a few others. But People of the Lie is on my bookshelf behind me, and I read that book about a little over a year ago, and it was life-changing for me. And he's the person who said, evil does not come to us through animals. It comes to us through people. It comes to us through human beings. And I do not believe that human beings are evil, but I believe that they are capable of evil. And I believe that some of them choose to do evil things. But I don't believe that humanity on the whole is evil. I believe that humanity is love, light, truth, compassion, and human decency. And we do have this thing in our world where some people simply never developed that. They never connected to it. They never hooked in to the reality of what a human being is. And I don't know why. I'll never have all the answers to the, for the, what is the reason why that happens. Why do some children come into the world completely disconnected and unable to understand empathy or feel empathy or express empathy? or to feel remorse or to express remorse or to be able to understand that what a conscience is and develop a conscience and be able to connect to their conscience and let that conscience be the thing on board inside of them that is it's like the trip wire that says when you've gone too far, what you may or may not do. And if those things aren't working and we're in a relationship with someone, but they're incredibly gifted at posing as someone who does have a conscience, that has tremendous capacity to hurt us. And then we end up as a person who's possibly been in a long-term relationship with a highly abusive person and having just absolutely a massive amount of trauma within the body that needs to be healed. And so I hope this helped to clarify some of this for you, because emotional and relationship trauma, when it comes from a person who has absolutely no qualms whatsoever about neglecting you, ignoring you, deceiving you, lying to you, betraying you, invalidating you, manipulating you, gaslighting you. I mean, just straight up wanting to be and actively engaging in being the author of your reality and doing it to the point where you can't even trust your own thoughts and your own feelings, your own perceptions anymore. That is a horrendous abuse to do to another human being. So doing these talks, my goal is to help people to truly understand the problem is not with you, my friend. The problem is that you may not have understood what high antisocial traits are. You might not have understood sociopathy, psychopathy, and high narcissistic traits, high oppositional defiant traits, and things like conduct disorder in adolescents and children. But you're learning. You stuck with me all the way to the end of this video, which I really, really appreciate. I hope it helps. I want people to understand emotional trauma, relationship trauma comes primarily from a person who is low in conscience, low in empathy, and low in remorse. We need to be able to see it, call it what it is, and then it gives us that leading edge to be able to do something about it and to be able to focus our attention and our energy and our learning in a certain direction. And through doing that, we can heal ourselves on the inside, because we know I did not ask for this. I didn't do this to myself. I wasn't stupid. I wasn't faulty, bad, broken, shameful, or malfunctioning. The reality of what happened is that I got mixed up with or in a relationship with or bumped up against a person without a conscience. So I'll leave it there for today. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate every single one of my subscribers. Thank you so much for helping me to surpass 1,000 subscribers. If you like my channel, please hit the like button right now. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe now. I would love it if you did. And I really, I don't like asking my viewers for something, but I'm going to ask today. I sure could use some shares. If you would share it on any platform that you participate on, I would appreciate it and love that so much. If you would share my information anywhere you want, and I just would love it if you would send it to just one friend or relative that you think would be interested in learning about this stuff. Please share it, because we need to get the word out so that people can have healthier relationships, and with more information, we can step away right at the beginning before that person can get into our, to get into the fabric of our emotions and our life and our family and all that stuff. We can stop them by saying, oh, I see what this is. I don't need this. I'm going to just step away now, treat this individual like I'm on a path and I just spotted a coiled up rattlesnake next to a little pile of rocks, and I'm just going to go a different direction now. That's what we're out. That's what we're about. That's what this information is for. Just giving ourselves awareness so that we can live our best life. And when we form relationships, we can form them with some information that helps us to have the highest quality human interactions and connections that we could ever hope to have. And so, if you're interested in becoming a client of mine for certified trauma recovery coaching, I would love to hear from you. My website is not what I want it to be right now. And if you're interested in finding out more about me and what I could provide for you through certified trauma recovery coaching sessions, you can reach out to me through my email, which is Lin, Lin, at LinBouthillier.com. It's Lin Bouthillier. Lin at linbouthillier.com. That's my email. My phone number is 716-994-3052. And you can call me and set up a discovery call. You can text me at that number to request setting up a discovery call. Usually a discovery call, I ask my clients to plan for about 1 hour. I do charge a nominal fee for it. I charge $24.50 for a discovery call, but I stay on that call with you until I've answered all of your questions about how certified trauma recovery coaching works, how it can help you, what the cost would be involved, how long the sessions are, how many we think that you would need, things like that. Anything that you want to ask, you're free to ask during that, and I will stay on the call with you until every last question's been satisfied. So I hope to hear from you. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I hope that you will remember that self-care is never, ever selfish. It is essential to our well-being, and that you are infinitely worthy of your own trauma recovery, and no truer words have ever been spoken by me. I mean that from my heart. I mean that as the truest thing that I could ever tell a trauma survivor, that you are infinitely worthy of your own trauma recovery. Have the best day, everyone. See you next time.